You ever notice how sometimes the most harmless sound can signal the start of a war? The first time my gate rattled at 6 in the morning, I thought it was just the wind, maybe a stray raccoon, something easy to brush off. But nope, it was Karen. There she was, in all her sunrise glory, yanking my gate like it was glued shut, her Lexus idling sideways at the curb, bob haircut stiff as a helmet, oblivious to the fact that, some folks actually like a little peace with their coffee. She just kept at it till the gate finally slammed open, and, like she was Grand Marshal of the parade, marched right across my lawn. I stood there at the window, mug in hand, thinking, yeah, that happened. Is this real life? I let it slide. First time's an oddity, right? Maybe she's an A. Hurry, maybe the sidewalks got cooties, who knows? But by day 3, the metallic clang was so regular I could time my alarm to it. My dog started barking at the window, neighbors started peeking through blinds, and Karen, never a glance, never a wave, just steamrolled through, yoga mat under her arm, dripping with entitlement and not an ounce of embarrassment. The first words out of her mouth, "You should fix this gate, it sticks." Like the only problem here was my hardware, not her total disregard for property lines or, basic decency. By Saturday, she clocked my parked truck, with the gate so hard it left a fresh dent, then had the nerve to say, "That's poor planning." That's when it clicked. This wasn't just arrogance. It was a power move. She wanted everyone to see her strut, to know nothing could stop her. It was like living next to a bulldozer in yoga pants. Now, I wasn't raised to shout or throw fits. Folks like Karen thrive on turning a confrontation into a pity party, and trust me, she was on the HOA board, queen of weaponizing vague rules. I needed a different strategy, so I went low-tech and sneaky, reinforced the latch with a spring, just enough to give her some resistance. The next morning, right on cue, she storms up, grabs the gate, and suddenly, nothing. Stuck. She yanks, face going red, throws her weight against it, and nearly tumbles forward. For the first time, she looked rattled. Small victories, But folks like Karen, they don't take lessons. They escalate. Soon enough, there's an HOA letter accusing me of blocking community access, harassing a board member, demanding I remove the modifications or face fines. No signature, but the passive-aggressive tone was pure Karen. I played along, took off the spring, made it look like surrender, but installed a hidden camera above the gate. I wasn't just protecting my driveway now. I was collecting evidence. And then she upped the ante, drove her Lexus right through the gate at dawn, treating my driveway like a shortcut to the park. Left tire marks and a nice little reminder that in her world, other people's boundaries were optional. But this time, I had her on camera. Not that I called the cops, not yet. I waited for her to repeat the stunt, then installed a pair of steel ballads inside the gate, camouflaged just enough that, next morning, she plowed into them at full tilt. The clang was music to my ears. Her Lexus, not so much. Now, this got the whole street's attention. Karen, usually so smug, standing white-faced by her crumpled hood, no comeback, no victim act. That's when the neighbors finally started to talk, not loudly, but enough for me to realize I wasn't alone. The trap had worked, sort of, but Karen wasn't done. She called an emergency HOA meeting, summoned the board to my driveway, rallied the county for hazardous obstructions. The inspector came, shook his head. "You're in a gray area, but technically you're fine." Still, the pressure was relentless. Anonymous letters, vandalized mailbox, trash scattered, rumor campaigns. She played dirty. Tried to turn the neighbors against me. And I'll be honest, it wore on me. But I kept documenting every note, every dent, every accusation. Finally, I realized the only way to end it wasn't more steel or cameras. It was to beat her at her own game. I started talking to the neighbors. Mr. Reynolds, who she'd ticketed for parking too close to the curb. Mrs. Jenkins, fined for her roses. We collected stories, signatures, filed for a recall. When the vote came, I let the footage do the talking. Karen, in glorious HD, trespassing, denting, gate smashing, crowbar in hand. Her downfall wasn't a bang, but a slow, humiliating drip. She lost the vote, lost her board seat, lost her Lexus, repoed after the insurance hiked her rates. And just when I thought it was over, she found new ways to stir the pot. Court cases, false complaints, even a line of salt poured across my lawn in the dead of night. Petty, spiteful, but finally, enough for real charges. The police served her with papers. Her empire crumbled. The day she left, rental car, house for sale, blinds closed. I stood by my gate, coffee steaming, feeling something almost like relief. The neighborhood changed. Barbecues, kids laughing, folks waving again. Karen's legend turned into a cautionary tale. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't still lock the gate tight at night, or listen for that clang in my dreams. Entitlement like hers doesn't just vanish. It waits, it morphs. And somewhere out there, she's probably rattling someone else's fence, convinced she's the hero. But not here. Here, the gate stays mine. So let's hear it. Where do you draw the line? What would you have done different? Or did I play it just right? Hit the comments, share your own neighbor. That gentle hum it used to have, before the drama turned our cul-de-sac into a war zone. But if there's one thing I learned, it's that normal doesn't come easy after a storm like that. The house Karen left behind, big, beige, shutters always drawn, sat empty for weeks, maybe months. The grass went brown in neat lines where she'd salted it, and for a while, her ghost hung over everything. Folks would slow their cars when they passed. Kids cut across other yards just to avoid her fence. Then one morning, a moving truck rolled up and this young couple, Sam and Tina, stepped out, all nervous smiles and hopeful energy. The kind of people who bake actual brownies to introduce themselves, not store-bought cookies meant to disguise bad intentions. Tina handed me a plate, still warm from the oven, her hands shaking a little as she looked around, probably wondering if the horror stories were true. I just told her, "Welcome to the neighborhood. You picked a good time to move in." She laughed, a sound that finally felt like sunlight after months of rain. Little by little, people came out of hiding. The Jenkins boys started riding their bikes up and down the street. Again, Mr. Reynolds walked his ancient golden retriever right past my gate. He even waved, which used to be a rare event. Saturday afternoons turned into barbecue hour, the smell of charcoal drifting past fences that no longer felt like battle lines. I can't lie, the peace was almost unsettling at first, like waiting for the next shoe to drop. But every so often, reminders would sneak back. In little things that made my heart jump. One night, I caught the shape of a Lexus in my headlights as I pulled in late from work, and for half a second, every muscle in my body tensed, ready for another round. But it was just a visitor for Sam and Tina, taillights winking politely as they turned out of the cul-de-sac. And you know what? Sometimes, I catch myself thinking about Karen, not with anger, not really, but with this weird mix of pity and wariness. I'd see her house, now with the new couple's sunflowers in the window, and I'd remember her sitting there with that mug, clutched in her hands, pride stripped away, plotting one last move. Part of me waited for her to come storming back, paperwork in hand, lawyers trailing, a new set of accusations ready to launch. But she never did. Not a letter, not a rumor, not even a stray complaint to the county. If she was still out there, fighting her battles, she'd picked a new stage. Still, there were times when the drama threatened to flare up again, just in different colors. See, the HOA didn't change overnight. There's always someone itching for power, some new board member who thinks they can run the street better than the last. But with Karen gone, folks were a little less eager to fight, a little more willing to talk things out before reaching for the rule book. We had meetings that were actually about lawns and broken streetlights, not vendettas and sabotage. I even ended up chairing one or two, just because I'd become the guy who knew how to handle things. Life's funny like that. But then, one evening, I got a knock at the door. It was Tina, looking rattled, clutching a slip of paper. Anonymous note, no return address, typed up all official with phrases like community standards and failure to maintain curb appeal. She asked if I thought Karen might be behind it, somehow still pulling strings from a distance. I took the note, read it twice, and shook my head. If it was her, you'd know, she doesn't do subtle. Don't worry. This neighborhood looks out for its own now. Thing is, I meant it. After everything, we were finally acting like neighbors, not rivals. When someone's trash can got knocked over or a kid's bike ended up on the wrong porch, people talked it out face to face. When a car parked a little too close to a driveway, it was a conversation, not a citation. It was like the battle with Karen had burned away all the petty stuff that used to divide us, left something sturdier behind. But I'll admit, every time a county truck rolled by slow, or an unfamiliar car circled the block at dawn, I still felt my guard go up, just for a second. You never really shake off a war like that, not completely. I'd see Mrs. Collins, the new HOA chair, out tending her roses, waving at every car, genuinely trying to make peace stick. I saw neighbors exchange tools, swap stories about how bad things had gotten. And every so often, someone would ask, "You ever hear from her?" And we'd all know who they meant, even if no one said her name out loud. One evening, Sam joined me on the porch, beer in hand, watching the sun go down. "Heard you had a wild year," he said, half joking, half nervous. "What would you do if she came back?" I laughed, really laughed for the first time in a long while. "You know what, Sam? If she shows up, this time, she'll find more than just me waiting at the gate. She'll find a whole neighborhood ready to stand up." And that's the thing about people like Karen. They think they can divide and conquer, use fear like a crowbar. But in the end, all they do is teach you how strong a community can be when it finally decides enough is enough. I don't know where she is now, or if she's changed, if people like that ever really do, but I know she's not coming back here. And if she does, well, this time, we're ready. So, if you're out there watching, dealing with your own Karen, or fighting for a bit of peace in your corner of the world, don't give up. Stand your ground, keep your receipts, and remember, patience outlasts drama every single time. Oh, and if you've got your own battle scars or crazy neighbor stories, don't be shy. Drop them in the comments. Let's swap some tales, because trust me, no one gets through this life without a few. And hey, if you ever need backup, you know where to find me.